Hey guys, it's Luke here from LT Gaming, and I'm back. And today I'm doing a should you buy for the new tabletop wargame, Second Front. So it's that exciting time of the year when a new microprose game is released. And I'm very excited for this one and know that there's a lot of expectation in the wargame community. Now I will say, I want to caveat this should you buy with exactly what a should you buy is. This is not an in-depth review of the game. It's my first 5 to 10 hours and my thoughts on whether you should make a purchase and try the game out for yourself. So make sure to drop down, like, comment and subscribe. And as always, we really appreciate all of the interaction. Second Front advertises itself as an accessible World War II turn-based tactical game with more than 40 infantry units and 200 tanks, vehicles and guns. It has all the depth of a paper war game and the ease of a computer simulation. Campaign scenarios and a complete editor make it an infinite tactical sandbox experience. Overall, for me, Second Front did live up to what it promised to deliver. I did find that I was frustrated for large parts of my initial playthrough, as it's very different to other war games, and I had to be extremely patient. And at the moment, I'm playing a lot of real-time strategy games, war games like Close Combat, Combat Mission Black Sea, and Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, as you've seen on the channel. And I found that moving to this, I got a little bit frustrated, had to slow down my play style and learn to have some patience. And there was that learning curve switching into this game, which was a little bit of a struggle. The boot camp was an engaging experience, but took some careful reading and analysis to understand exactly what I needed to achieve. I guess that modern games have spoilt me a little bit in this regard. You simply read a text and then try to execute a plan. As a result, I often found myself forgetting small details of what I needed to do next and replayed some tutorial missions multiple times. I would have to question whether this was my failure or the game's. In defense of the Second Front tutorial, I would say that it did actually make me engage with the mechanisms and mechanics of the game, whereas in a lot of modern games, I tend to watch the tutorial and just skip past it or not taking any of the details. With this, I actually had to learn, and there are some very unique mechanics in this turn-based approach. Initially, I found some of the phases a little counterintuitive, but by the final boot camp, I was executing orders in style. However, I will say that the game is extremely difficult, or very difficult if you're coming from a lot of real-time strategy games like I have been playing recently. So that was a little bit of a learning curve. Combat in Second Front is broken down into multiple phases for each side. So if you're playing as the Americans, you will have your chance to move and fire, while the Germans may only have the chance to fire within your phase. This then ends in a melee phase and you both swap over. So you have to plan ahead. It's not your typical turn-based game where you take your turn and they take theirs. You run through your set of phases, and that definitely takes some getting used to. I would really have to say in this case that the game is kind of easy to play but hard to master, and you have to adapt to this new phase style. I did find the ability to move tanks and their turret direction quite innovative for this style of wargame. You can also move faster along roads if your crew is exposed instead of buttoned up. However, when you pick one of these stances, you may also only use certain weapons. This all adds to the tactical depth within the game, and I really appreciate how it innovates on the typical turn-based wargame. The battles in Second Front are certainly entertaining, if challenging, and occasionally frustrating. I did enjoy my time planning the movement of my units across the map, using the sneak ability and the advance phase to move forward on the enemy without being seen. The game is all about trying to keep your units in cover. There are an exceptional amount of units in the game, and they can be viewed from the in-game library, and you can go through and see all their different strengths and weaknesses. So the battles did engage me. Occasionally they dragged on or I got frustrated halfway, but overall I kept finding myself coming back and attempting new challenges. They do end up being a little bit like puzzles, and that's not exactly my favourite type of war game. So like Unity of Command 2, I prefer more kind of games where you can react. So Combat Mission Black Sea I'm playing at the moment. You know, I can see my troops coming under fire. I know I need to pop smoke and do things like that. So you do need to approach that this is more of a board game style game, and then you will hopefully get the enjoyment you want from it. When playing Second Front, you will quickly learn that not everything goes your way in battle, and you do need to adapt your tactics on the fly. There are two sides to this. One, I found that it forced me to have to learn a different style, but also I saw it occasionally as frustrating. My units would break based on essentially a dice roll, and if one or two of your units break, then the entire 20 minutes you've just played can be lost. And I did find this sudden collapse of my troops could be a big issue in battle. It is a difficult game. The key is to try and be flexible in your approach. In fact, some of my early battles were just major disasters, as the game didn't communicate to me too well when my troops would be hit and how easily they would be broken. The RNG nature of the game can also frustrate at times, as I alluded to, with units mass breaking very quickly. Okay, so on to graphics. Now, I'm going to say this, and I did look at some other reviews of the game before I made my decision, and people were saying, oh, the graphics are wonderful. In my opinion, I'm just not a fan of this cartoony style of graphic, especially with the era and type of warfare that it's trying to portray. Now, that's a personal opinion. Overall, the graphics look pretty cool and stylistic, I will give it that, but the aesthetic just isn't for me. I would prefer a more gritty, realistic presentation like Close Combat, for instance. But hey, I'm not going to write the whole game off on its graphics, but it is definitely something to consider, as I find it a little bit immersion breaking, and for me, gaming is all about that immersion. On the sound side, I mean, it's serviceable, there are good effects for the weapons, nice explosive, crunchy sounds, and a decent soundtrack running in the background, which I never really noticed, and I am a fan of great game soundtrack, so Imperium's Greek Wars would stand out to me with an absolutely amazing soundtrack. I do know some people like to turn the music off. Hey, I'm not one of those people, but whatever floats your boat in that regard. But overall, what I will say about the sound is there is some nice ambient effects, so when you're playing a battle there will be suddenly huge explosions in the background, and it does bring you back to the fact that you're fighting a tactical battle. One thing I will say, which frustrated me at times, was the slow map rotation using Q&E. It's a little bit slow to rotate, and hopefully that can be adjusted in the future. One of my other frustrations with this game was the multi-layered aspect of buildings. I found it very difficult to tell what level the enemy were on and how I could position my troops to attack or be next to them so that they would surrender. In the tutorial where you have to capture all the panicked troops and make them surrender, I just quit out of frustration, as I just didn't have the time to position all my units in the right place, and the map didn't quite give me the right information to see how to do that effectively. This is definitely a weakness of the game, and for instance, zooming into buildings, it's immersion breaking and doesn't quite work. In defense of the game, and to really highlight its strengths, I did find that it grew on me over time, and each night I'd log on for an hour and challenge myself with a new battle. And the battles are very challenging, but as the phases start to click, the game starts to reward you, and it becomes a lot more fun. It's very easy to see that this is a passion project for the developer that comes from a tabletop tactical board gaming background. And I really appreciate how the game tries to innovate on the turn-based formula and add in all those little details that make the battles far more entertaining. Also, there's an absolute mountain of content here for the avid enthusiast to enjoy. There are a ton of tutorials, massive amount of single-player missions for the Americans, Russians and Germans. Once you've done those, you start to unlock campaigns, and then there are scoreboards and so much to do here. However, just like Regiments, there is no multiplayer, so if multiplayer is your thing, this is just not the game for you. I will say, if you're a turn-based wargame lover, then Second Front will be right up your alley, and I'd recommend it as a buy with no issues. However, as I've been playing a lot of wargames with real-time elements like Attack at Dawn North Africa and Combat Mission Black Sea lately, I found the movement to this game a little jarring, a little frustrating, and it definitely has a learning curve. If you're not patient, this is not the game for you. I enjoyed my time with Second Front, and the game is an absolute planner's dream. If you're into tabletop tactical board games, then this is an absolute buy. If you're more into your real-time strategy or strategic scale wargames, then you may want to hold off and get a second opinion. It would be my hope that the game would come in around $29.99 or your regional equivalent. Anything more than that, and I would feel that you were slightly overpaying for the project. But hey, who knows, some people might absolutely love this game. So anyway guys, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Check out Second Front by Microprose. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.